He was chasing his lifelong dream until something stopped him on the way. A helpless pregnant woman in desperate need. He chose to help, not knowing that one act of kindness would cost him everything. His dream, his hope, even his direction in life. How did helping a stranded pregnant woman turn into a problem? He lost it all. But he didn't stay down for long. Want to know what happened next? Watch the full story. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The sun was already hot that morning. Birds flew from one rooftop to another, and people walked quickly along the road, heading to work, school, or the market. It looked like a normal day, until Nancy, a pregnant woman with a round belly, stepped out of her house. She was going to the supermarket nearby to buy a tomato ketchup for breakfast. She smiled as she walked, rubbing her stomach gently. "My baby," she whispered softly. "Soon you'll be here." But just a few minutes into her walk, something strange happened. Nancy suddenly stopped. Her eyes widened in fear. "Ah!" she screamed, grabbing her stomach. "Oh no!" Her water had broken. A sharp pain shot through her lower body. Her baby was coming, the labor had started. She looked around. She was standing on the side of a busy road, with no hospital in sight. Her legs were shaking. Her breathing became fast. "Somebody help me, please," she shouted, waving both hands in the air. "Please, I'm in labor. I need to get to the hospital." People passed by her, some walking, some on motorcycles, others in cars. But nobody stopped. One young woman, dressed in office clothes, glanced at her but walked faster. "I'm sorry, Ma. I'm late for work. I would have helped, but I can't lose my job." Nancy held onto a tree, breathing hard. "Please, help," she cried again, but her voice was becoming weak. A tall man in jeans and dark glasses stopped for a moment. He looked her up and down and hissed loudly. "This old trick again. Fake pains just to collect money. Madam, it's too early for this drama." He walked away, shaking his head. Tears ran down Nancy's cheeks. She bent down slowly and sat on the rough ground beside the road. Her clothes were soaked. Her lips trembled. The pain was too much. The shame was even worse. "Please," she kept whispering to people passing by. "Please help me. I don't want to die. My baby." But cars zoomed past. Some people even turned their faces away, pretending not to see her. Minutes passed. Nancy's strength was almost gone. Just then, a young man named Anthony walked down the street. He was wearing a neat black suit and carrying a folder. He had not stopped smiling since he left his house that morning. After 2 years of searching for a job, today was his big chance. He had an interview at one of the biggest companies in the city. A dream job. A job that could change his life forever. He was walking fast, looking straight ahead, when he heard a faint voice. "Please, sir. Help me." Anthony turned his head. There on the ground was a woman in pain. She was pregnant. Her clothes were dirty from the ground. Her face was red and sweaty. She looked helpless. Anthony paused. He looked at his wristwatch. The interview was just in 30 minutes. He took one step forward, trying to ignore her, but her voice stopped him again. "Please. I beg you. Help me get to the hospital." Anthony closed his eyes tightly. His mind was in a battle. If I help her, I'll miss my interview. But what if she dies here? What if the baby dies too? Suddenly, a memory flashed through his mind. His mother's story. She once told him that when she was pregnant with him, his father had run away. She had almost died during labor, but a kind stranger helped her and took her to the hospital. That stranger saved her, and Anthony. His mother always said, "If that man had walked away, maybe you wouldn't be alive today." Anthony opened his eyes and looked at Nancy again. Maybe. This is my own chance to repay that kindness. He took a deep breath and ran to her. "Madam," he said, kneeling beside her. "Don't worry. I'm here now. I'll help you." Anthony quickly raised his hand and waved at every passing taxi. Several drove by without stopping. Then finally one old yellow taxi pulled up. The driver looked tired and annoyed. "What's the problem?" the driver asked, frowning. "She's in labor. Please take us to the nearest hospital." "It's an emergency," Anthony said. "Enter fast," the driver shouted. Anthony helped Nancy up gently. She groaned loudly in pain but managed to get into the car. He sat beside her, holding her hand and whispering, "It's okay. Just hold on." The taxi rushed through the streets. In less than 10 minutes, they reached Urban Hills Hospital. 2 nurses rushed outside with a stretcher. "Bring her down quickly," one shouted. Anthony helped them lift Nancy into the stretcher. The nurses wheeled her into the emergency ward immediately. The taxi driver stood beside the car, stretching his hand toward Anthony. "My money," he said. Anthony blinked. He had forgotten about the fare. "Oh, how much is it?" $300. Anthony checked his pocket. He only had 2 old $10 bills. "I'm sorry, this is all I have," he said quietly. The driver looked at the money and laughed angrily. "So you got your wife pregnant and now you can't pay a taxi?" "No, sir. She's not my wife. I just helped her from the road," Anthony tried to explain. "Ah, you're even lying now. Denying your own wife. Lazy man. Go and get a life." He snatched the money and drove off, shouting curses from the window. Anthony stood there in silence, embarrassed and sad. His suit was wet with sweat. His dreams were probably gone. But he still walked into the hospital. He sat at the reception, confused and tired. A nurse approached. "Sir, the doctor will see you soon about your wife," she said kindly. Anthony didn't bother to correct her. He just nodded. Soon a young doctor came out. His face was serious. "Sir, she has lost a lot of blood. It's an emergency. We may have to operate quickly. But we need a deposit." Anthony stood up quickly. "Doctor, she's not my wife. I don't know her name. I found her on the road. She was in pain and I helped." The doctor stared at him. "You don't know her?" "No, sir. I just couldn't leave her there to die." "Well, she's unconscious now. We can't reach her family. No phone. No ID. And we can't continue treatment without money." "I don't have any money," Anthony whispered. "Then find a way," the doctor said sharply. "You brought her here. That makes you responsible." Before Anthony could reply, the doctor walked away. Anthony felt sweat running down his face and back. His heart beat fast. He looked around but no one seemed to care. "What should I do now?" he thought. "I missed my interview. Have no money. I don't even know this woman's name." But deep inside he knew one thing. He had done the right thing. And somehow he believed that everything would make sense, one day. After leaving the hospital, Anthony stood outside for a while. His mind was full. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His shoe was dusty. He had helped a pregnant woman who was almost dying. But now he was about to lose the biggest chance of his life. He looked at his watch. He had only a few minutes left before the interview would end. He rushed down the road waving at bikes, but they didn't stop. After running and catching his breath over and over, he finally arrived at Brownson Electricals, the company where his interview was meant to happen. He smiled weakly and walked toward the gate, but before he could speak, the security guard stopped him. "Hey you! Where do you think you are going?" the guard asked, looking at Anthony from head to toe. "I have an interview," Anthony said, trying to catch his breath. "Interview?" The guard laughed loudly. "With this your dirty shirt and smelly armpit. Olga, this is not the hospital. This is a company." "Please, sir," Anthony begged. "It's not what you think. I was on my way here this morning when I saw a pregnant woman in labor. She needed help. I had to take her to the hospital. That's why I look like this. Please let me explain to someone inside." The guard hissed. "So because you helped one woman, you now look like a madman. You think the people inside will take you seriously like this?" Just then, a black official car was driving out of the company gate. A man wearing a fine blue suit sat inside. He looked like someone important. The man saw the noise and rolled down his window. "What's going on here?" he asked in a calm but serious voice. "Good afternoon, sir. My name is Anthony. I was one of the candidates shortlisted for the interview today. I really wanted this job. But on my way here, I met a woman in labor on the road. People were ignoring her. I had to stop and help her get to the hospital. That's why I'm late. Please, sir. I just want a chance to explain myself to the panel." The man looked at Anthony closely. He didn't say anything for a while. Then he shook his head slowly. "You did the right thing," the man said quietly. "But life is about timing and priority. You missed the interview. The position has been filled. Maybe the job wasn't meant for you." The window rolled up. A car drove away. Anthony stood still at the gate, his hands by his side. His heart broke slowly. The dream he had waited for. The job he prayed for. It was gone. Just like that. He turned and walked away. Not fast. Not slow. Just quietly. As he walked home, he whispered to himself, "Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe good people don't win in this world." He didn't know that something was happening at that same moment. Something that would change everything. Earlier that morning, before Anthony met Nancy, Eric Brown, the CEO of Brownson Electricals, had left home for work. He kissed his pregnant wife Nancy and said, "Baby, I'll just stop by the office quickly. I'll be back soon. Rest well and don't forget to eat." Nancy smiled. "Okay, dear. Drive safe." That was the last time Eric saw his wife that day. When he returned home hours later, the house was too quiet. "Sweetheart," he called out, dropping his car key on the table. There was no answer. He walked into the kitchen. The food items he asked her to buy weren't there. Her phone was not on the table. He checked the bedroom. The bed was untouched. "Maybe she stepped out to buy something," he said to himself. "I'll wait." But after 2 hours, she still didn't return. Her phone was switched off. Eric started calling her friends and family. Nobody had seen her. Nobody knew where she went. Fear began to grow in his chest. He couldn't eat. He couldn't sit still. By nightfall, he couldn't take it anymore. He drove to the police station. "My wife is missing," he said. "Her name is Nancy Brown. She's heavily pregnant. She went out and hasn't returned. Her phone is off. Please help me." They took down the report and told him to remain calm. But how could a husband remain calm when his pregnant wife had disappeared without a trace? Meanwhile, at Urban Hills Hospital, Anthony was sitting at the waiting area, tired and unsure of what to do next. His clothes were still dirty. His eyes looked tired. A doctor walked out from the emergency ward. "Sir," he said, smiling slightly. "Congratulations. She just gave birth to a bouncing baby boy." Anthony's mouth opened. "Really? She delivered safely?" "Well," the doctor replied, "the baby is fine. But the mother lost a lot of blood. She's in a coma now. We are doing our best, but we still need money for more treatment." Anthony walked slowly into the nursery. When he saw the baby lying in the tiny hospital crib, tears filled his eyes. The baby yawned. Then he opened his eyes and smiled softly. Anthony reached out and carried him gently. "You are such a beautiful baby," he whispered. "So small. So innocent. I don't know your name. I don't even know your father. But I promise, I'll do everything I can to help your mother. You will both be fine." He stayed there for a while watching the baby sleep. The next morning, Anthony went to the market and bought a bag full of fruits. Bananas, apples, oranges. He returned to the hospital and handed the bag to the nurse. "What is this?" she asked. "Fruits," Anthony said. "For the woman. She needs strength, right?" The nurse burst into laughter. "Sir, are you all right? You brought fruits for someone in a coma. She can't eat anything. What you should be bringing is money, not oranges." Another nurse nearby laughed and added, "And you're still pretending she's not your wife, because you don't want to pay the bills. Fear men." Anthony said nothing. He picked up his empty fruit basket and walked out slowly. At home, he sat in his small wooden chair. He put his head in his hands. He was tired. He was broke. And now people were laughing at him. "Maybe I should not have helped," he whispered. "Now I've lost the job I prayed for. Have no money. Everyone thinks she's my wife. But what if I didn't help her? What if she died on that road? What if the baby died too?" He thought about the baby's smile. That tiny, innocent smile gave him a strange strength. Maybe things would still be okay. In less than 20 minutes, Eric arrived at the hospital. He rushed straight to the reception and explained himself. The nurses looked at each other, surprised. "Please calm down, sir," one of them said gently. "Follow me." She led him through a quiet hallway and into a small, warm recovery room. There, lying on the hospital bed, was Nancy. She was weak but awake. Her eyes were half open and her skin was still pale. But she was alive. The moment she saw Eric, tears filled her eyes. "Eric," she whispered. "Baby." Eric ran to her side and hugged her tightly. "I'm so sorry. I should never have left you alone that day. Thank God you're alive." Nancy smiled weakly. "It's a boy," she said softly. Eric looked down and saw the little bundle beside her on the bed. The baby was wrapped in a blue blanket. He had soft brown skin and tiny fingers. Eric picked up his son for the very first time. He stared at him with wide eyes and a trembling lip. "I'm a father," he whispered in shock. "I'm really a father now." As he stood there, still holding his son, something caught his eye. Anthony was standing quietly by the door, holding another basket of fresh fruits. His shirt was clean this time, but his shoes were still dusty. He looked unsure if he should come in or wait. Eric walked towards him slowly. For a moment they just looked at each other. Then Eric dropped the baby gently into Nancy's arms, turned to Anthony, and gave him a tight hug. "I'm so sorry," Eric said, his voice breaking. "I misjudged you. Called you names. I looked down on you. But you're a far better man than I thought." Anthony smiled shyly and lowered his head. "You didn't know my wife, yet you risked your life, your dream job, your time. Just to help her. You didn't even have money, yet you still brought fruits for her every day. What kind of heart do you have? A good one." Eric looked into Anthony's eyes. "You saved my family. And for that, I will name my son after you." Anthony's mouth dropped open in shock. "Sir, no, you don't have to." Eric shook his head. "I must. You gave up something for us. And now I will give something back." A week later, the sun shone brightly in the compound of the Browns. Decorations filled the air. Family, friends, and neighbors all gathered. Laughter, music, and food moved from corner to corner. It was the naming ceremony of Nancy and Eric's newborn son. Eric stood proudly in front of everyone with his wife and baby beside him. Anthony stood quietly in the crowd, not expecting anything special. Eric cleared his throat. "Today is a special day for me," he began. "It is not just because I became a father, but because a stranger became a brother." The crowd went silent. "This man," Eric said, pointing to Anthony, "is the reason my wife and my son are alive today." Everyone turned and looked at Anthony. Some began to clap slowly. He gave up his job interview just to help a woman he had never met. He had no money, yet he stayed beside her in the hospital. When people mocked him, he still showed up with baskets of fruits. Who does that in today's world? Eric smiled and continued. "So today, I name my son Anthony Brown after this great man." The crowd clapped louder. Anthony's hands began to shake. He covered his face as tears rolled down his cheeks. Eric raised his hand again. "And that's not all. I own Brownson Electricals, a company many dreamed to work for." Anthony came for an interview that day, but he missed it because he chose to save lives instead. Eric turned to him. "Today, I offer you more than a job. Anthony, I'm making you a director in my company. You're not just an employee. You are now part of my family." The crowd gasped. Cheers filled the air. Nancy smiled through her tears. A few people walked up to shake Anthony's hand. Some hugged him. Everyone had tears in their eyes. Anthony stood there speechless. He remembered his mother's words she used to tell him as a child. "My son, always help people when you can. You never know how it will return to you." And now, that advice had turned a poor job seeker into a company director. He wiped his tears and whispered, "Helping others really pays." The end. What lesson did you learn from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading and replying them all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more inspiring videos coming soon.